Hello folks, and welcome back to another episode of Wheels of Mercury. I'm your host Wheels, and this is going to be a very contentious episode because we are talking about a band that has split the metal world in two. People either love this band or they freaking hate it. No in between. And I happen to be a huge fan of the band way before even they gained popularity on TikTok back in 2023. That's right, I am talking about the heavy alternative rock slash pop metal or not or whatever band Sleep Token with their new album, Even In Arcadia. Sleep Token formed in Britain in 2016 and released their first two EPs, 1 and 2, in 2016 and 2017 respectively. Those two EPs, by the way, have some underrated songs that are definitely worth checking out. I would recommend the song Jericho off of those two releases. I actually think that those two EPs are the best non-album work, with a dark atmosphere that was really captivating at the time when I found them back in 2017, which is where I first came to know the band around April or May of that year through discovering the music video for the song Calcutta before the second EP came out. They were on the British label Basic Records at the time. My love for Sleep Token has been well documented on the channel. If you've been subscribed to the channel since at least 2021, then there's a good chance you might remember that I did a video in response to the Metal Meltdown's review of their second album, This Place Will Become Your Tomb. That negative review of his has since been taken down from YouTube because of death threats that he got in the comments from very unhinged fans, of which, as a gigantic Sleep Token fan myself, I do not claim them in the slightest. I like to think that I am much more calm than those fans were. And it was pretty cool to get a very brief shout out from Melty himself on Metal Trench's Toxic Fanbase video as an example of a Sleep Token fan who is on the relatively normal side. Thanks for shouting me out, Uncle Melty. Since I first found out about them, I have always been music first with Sleep Token. The whole lore stuff with the god called Sleep and all of that, I've never have really particularly cared about. As a fan of black metal bands like Lamp of Murmur that have used anonymity in order to express themselves and remove themselves from the music they play, I'm a big fan of Sleep Token's approach of using masks and the fan base being very hush-hush and secretive about who's in the band. It really creates this dynamic with the music that any song of theirs can become your own interpretation, and I love that. And in terms of their eclectic sound, I have never once considered Sleep Token to be fully a metal band. Not at all. If anything, they are a pop/R&B band with metal parts appearing sporadically here and there. They have a couple full-on alternative metal songs in Vor from Take Me Back to Eden and Gods from Sundowning, but most of their other songs I would never consider metal at all. And that's actually a compliment to them as a band. They fit in that same category, in my opinion, as bands like Zeal and Ardor and Mirkur, where metal happened to be one of their influences, but not their full-on sound. Hence my annoyance with metal magazines and publications covering them and calling them a metal band, when they aren't, really. It just boils down to a quirk of music reviewers in general that try to put something in a box, even if that band in general clearly paints outside of that box, like Sleep Token does so often. And if you think somebody like Eli Elitis is gonna come in here and do a little spiel about this is not metal and this is not metal and blah 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 blah, that weirdo is way too deep into listening to a sketchy Finnish, Ukrainian, and Polish black metal band to even care about something like Sleep Token. I could go on and on and on. about how I love a ton of songs from the first full-length Sundowner, like Levitate, Give, and Higher, and how the second record, which, spoiler alert for a future video, has become one of my all-time favorites of the 2020s so far, before being slightly disappointed with Take Me Back to Eden. But this is not a Sleep Token history video, so I will just cut to the chase and take you to the present day, where Even In Arcadia, their first record with major label RCA and their fourth album overall, had just been released. So, in the eyes of this longtime Sleep Token fan, how is the album? Opening track, Look to Windward, is a slow burner of a song, really taking its time building up to these monolithic heavy parts that sound pretty huge. And the sort of ambient section kind of reminds me of a little bit of Deftones, which makes sense because when they used to release songs back in 2016 and 17, they would often tag Deftones onto their Instagram posts. So that makes a lot of sense. Emergence was the first single released, and it's a better realization of the trap/hip-hop element that they tried out on Take Me Back to Eden. I do hate to say this, but this song is unfortunately the most they've given in to all of the critics that try to label them as Imagine Dragons metal, especially in the trap part and that whoop part before the djent riff. I really still enjoy the song though, and the sax solo done by a live member of former Attack Attack from and Johnny Frank's band Bill Murray is cool and really relaxing. It reminds me of being a noir detective at night during a case while it's a thunderstorm outside in New York City, or something like that. Past Self really reminds me of a song that a certain Canadian pop/R&B star, soon to be formerly known as The Weeknd, has done before. It's also sonically reminiscent of what a brighter version of Descending off of This Place Will Become Your Tomb might sound like. The following track, Dangerous, has kind of a mixture between Vola and The Weeknd, and I do like the beat on it. My favorite of the pre-release singles was the next track, Caramel. You can check out what I said in my short about it up near my head. But to summarize here, it's like a mix of Issues, Death Heaven, and a reggaeton song. The lyrics unfortunately deal with those extremely parasocial fans that I talked about earlier, doxing them and trying to reveal their true identities, which is obviously incredibly disrespectful to them as artists. So I feel bad for Vessel because of all of that. He shouldn't have to go through all that, neither should the whole band. The title track of the album is a piano ballad with a cello part near the end that I wish went on longer. Upon my third listen of the album, it has become one of my favorites actually. Provider is an atmospheric pop song with a very sugary synth hook. However, it kind of failed to deliver on that atmospheric part and the memorability, resulting in a very bland and unfortunately forgettable song. I'm kind of underwhelmed by that track, really, and it's probably the first dud on the album, in my honest opinion. Democles was my least favorite of the pre-release songs. It's a piano ballad that reminds me of The Fray, you know, that band in the 2000s that did that song How to Save a Life. But if they had an amazing drummer with them, kind of a boring song, really. Even the lyrics get meta with it, with Vessel declaring that these chords are boring at one point. It tries to be emotional, but it just falls flat for me in ways that past songs like Levitate off of Sundowner didn't. Guess the Main actually throws a few Midwest emo mathcore riffs and great drumming from Two into the mix. The djent riff was cool, but after that, and after a bit of field recordings and ambience, we are dropped into a trap part reminiscent of Future or Travis Scott or some artist like that. And it just sort of resolves on that. It just sort of peters out into nothing. Closing track, Infinite Bath, is another long, slow burner to close out the album. That song also gives me very slight 1-2 EP era vibes that I picked up on second listen. Not exactly like the rawness of that era, but somewhat reminiscent in part. There are instrumental callbacks to the first track on the record, similar to how Euclid from the last album referenced The Night Did Not Belong to God on Sundowning in the song's final minutes. A very, very heavy part near the end that gave me goosebumps. And it's actually the best part on the entire album, until it fades out into the other. Probably the best non-single of the album, in my honest opinion. Future Wheels here from the editing table. I like to bring up another point about this new Sleep Token album that I thought of right away right now. The short songs on this album feel too short, and the long songs on this album feel way too freaking long. A lot of the long songs have a lot of dead space in them that, in my opinion, need to be cut out and stuff like that. It's very baffling that they used to do long songs so well. Like When the Bow Breaks and Fields of Elation, those were great songs. So it's really baffling how they're bungling that. Back to Past Wheels to reveal the score. But overall, this longtime Sleep Token fan gives Even In Arcadia a 2.5 out of 5. I do really miss the mysterious dark indie pop / gent metal vibes that they had on their 2 EPs back in 2016 and 17. And it is there a little bit on Infinite Bath. But I realize that the band has to change their sound a bit in order to stay relevant, right? As of right now, it's the most disappointing Sleep Token album for this longtime fan. But who knows? After all, Take Me Back to Eden was my album of the year back when it released in May of 2023. And then it really grew off of me to the point where it became one of my most disappointing albums of the year. So we shall see if this album grows on me or not. Tell me down below in the comments what you thought of this Sleep Token album. Did you like it? Did you hate it? Did you think it was okay? Somewhere in between? Let me know down below. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe. And if you do that, thank you so much for supporting this channel. I truly mean it. Rock on, guys, and I will see you in the next video.